awesome volunteers in this church that take everything from me. They will go out there and the youth ministry can work just the way it works, and I don't have to be there, which is awesome. It frees me up to be able to do fun stuff like this and just really just get to live the ministry instead of being just tied to those back rooms all the time, which is awesome. And we've got a lot of people that have helped out, and it's really cool because it's rare. It's rare to see a place and see a bunch of people who are willing to give of themselves for helping other people. In fact, it's so uncommon that our culture is completely wrought with the exact opposite. We're kind of selfish people in the end if we really think about it. We don't like to think about it. A lot of us would like to say, we're really unselfish because we help out our family, or maybe we help out our close friends, but it's funny. We get beyond the family and the friends, the close-knit relationships, and all of a sudden, that selflessness, that unselfishness that we have, kind of tends to go away. I think we all can kind of think of different scenarios. I was at an Orioles game a couple weeks ago for my brother's birthday, and we were in line about to get there. Orioles are in a pennant race. They're, huge crowds all the time, and so we were in line getting into the parking lot area, and if you've been down there before, we're backed up onto Russell Street pretty decently, and as you head into the kind of the parking lot areas there's like an S-bend you have to make to get into the parking lot kind of roads they have back there, and the road widens. Well, we get up to it, and all of a sudden, 2 or 3 cars behind us decide it's a great idea to jet out around the outside of us, bunny hop us 4 or 5 cars ahead, and then push their way back into line. And of course, all we can do is sit there and laugh. But at the same time, we're like, it's moronic. You're going to get a parking spot that's 2 spots closer than us. Really? Is it really worth it? But in the end, the principle remains. Me and my car. We got to get there first. We got tickets. We got to get there, and I don't know what you got to do when you're an hour and a half before the game and you got to get there soon. I don't know, you just feel like you got to go stand there and watch grass grow for an hour and a half. I don't know, but watch the groundskeepers water the infield. That's awesome. I guess some people get a joy out of that. I don't, though. The big one, this one gets me all the time. This one, my wife and I deal with this all the time. We always have to take 26 where it hits 15, right? Where Wegmans is, we have to take 15 south from 26. I cannot tell you how many times we've gone on there and about ready to merge into 15, and all of a sudden someone comes up the shoulder and thinks it's a great idea to come up the shoulder and pass about 10 cars on their way up. Just to get off at the next exit of Possum Town Pike. Yeah, that's what it usually is. And that's how it is, though. And those are examples that, we probably have our own little things that we think of times where we got cut off, or someone had to get somewhere quick and they cut us off. But I think we kind of can think of things in our own lives too, where instead of going and saying, I missed my exit, I can take the next exit, get off, turn around, maybe it'll take 5 minutes longer to do it that way. No, I'm going to cut off the person next to me to make sure I get my exit because I'm running a couple minutes behind as it is. And the world's going to end if I am late to get lunch or Starbucks, all right, so I can get to work okay. In fact, our entire economic system is built on this whole idea of selfishness. Capitalism doesn't work if people aren't selfish. The basis of it, I was an economics major in my undergrad, so it's a little hazy, but it remains. The idea is that we're selfish human beings. Capitalism works because each of us is going to get as big of a pie as we possibly can. That's how it works. If it didn't work like that, if it were the other way, it'd be socialism. Our entire society is based off of this. And so that's why it's rare when we see it all the time. That's awesome because I'm excited because you guys do a great job of it already. But today we want to talk about the heart of it. What it means to serve. And so we're continuing into Matthew 8, and we're picking up where Joe left off last week. In this next section, I'm going to just say that this next section, if you were to read this yourself, it would seem like the transition section to the next part of Jesus' story. It seems like Matthew kind of throws it in there as like, okay, I got to get from this story to that story. I got to find a good way to bridge the gap. Okay, this is just a transition paragraph to make it all work. But 1 Timothy says that all Scripture is God-breathed and good for preaching and teaching and encouraging others. Well, God showed me this week that literally all Scripture is God-breathed and awesome for preaching. And so it starts in verse 14. And it says, when Jesus came into Peter's house, he saw Peter's mother-in-law lying in bed with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she got up and began to wait on him. When evening came, many who were demon-possessed were brought to him, and he drove out the spirits with a word and healed all the sick. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. He took up our infirmities and carried our diseases. Any of you guys know me really well. I work a little bit backwards. So we're going to work with the second half of the passage first, and then work to the first half. One, because I just like to confuse you, and two, because I think it illuminates the first half. If you work on the second half, it just shows this amazing thing that can happen in the first half. And the second half is where all these people bring their sick and their demon-possessed to Jesus. He casts out demons, heals all the sick, and fulfills Isaiah's prophecy. Seems pretty rogue, sticking right down the middle. But you ever thought about why there's so many healings in the New Testament? Have you ever been like, okay, Jesus, all right, was he just showing off or something? Because seriously, that many miracles and healings in one person's lifetime, I mean, and then he goes and his disciples have pretty much the same track record as well. And you're kind of sitting there going, a lot of us sit there and go, I haven't seen that necessarily in my life. But why are they all there? And I think, different pastors give different reasons why. I've heard them all. We talked about it a couple weeks ago when Pastor Joe talked about the man who came and said, if you're willing, you can come and heal me. And we showed that, Jesus is willing to help heal us. He's willing to work in our lives. He's willing to either heal us or give us the strength to get through. He wants to be there. And I think it's awesome because, a little sidebar here, Jesus cares about our situation, which is a really cool thing. We think about our situation, a lot of times we feel like we're on an island somewhere, that we just, okay, I'm having trouble paying the bills this week, or I'm sick, or there's a family member who's sick, or you know what, the stress is just getting to me. And Jesus cares. And he's willing to help or give us the strength. I've heard other pastors talk about all these healings, the blind man gaining his sight, the lame man walking, the man with leprosy being cleansed. And they sit there and say, it just shows God's magnificence over all the laws of nature and all these different things and medicine, how he's the greatest doctor that's ever been. And I agree. Yeah, definitely. He's awesome. But I've rarely heard a pastor share what Jesus shared with me today. I mean, look at it. We look at all these things. The blind man sees, the lame man walks, the man with leprosy is cleansed. And then, what can get better than the dead man being raised from the grave? The Lazarus story or Jairus' daughter's story is crazy. I love the Lazarus story. What gets better than this? Because Lazarus is dead. And it's not just like Lazarus is dead like yesterday or something. No, Lazarus was probably dead and in the grave for a couple weeks before Jesus got there. Because someone ran after he had died and told him that his best friend had died somewhere else. Then he had to walk all the way back there and everything else. And he wasn't exactly running the whole time. He kind of did some things on the way. So Lazarus was stinky. Let's just put it that way, all right? He wasn't exactly the nicest looking dude probably if you were just to walk into the grave and be like, Lazarus looked more like a zombie, less like a human being probably, all right? And Jesus comes in and he's like, all right, 2 weeks in the grave, no big deal. Lazarus, arise, come out, and he didn't even look like a zombie at the end of it. He just came out and he looked like a normal human being, which is awesome. And the thing is, you kind of sit there and you go, that's got to be the culmination of all these healings. That's got to be it. And I looked at it and I go, it isn't. See, every one of these healings points to a greater healing. Every single one of these healings points to Christ's greatest healing, which is the one reason why he came to this earth, really. The main reason why you came. You see, the story starts way back at the beginning of time because Adam and Eve. And we all know the story for the most part. Adam and Eve, they ate the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and they weren't supposed to do that. Sin entered the world, and all of a sudden this Pandora's box of sin entered the world. I'm sure we've all had that moment, like something just in life feels like it's off. It's not supposed to be like this. Well, everything entered the world at that moment. Disease. Every sickness of every type. Every struggle of every type. Everything that just seems wrong entered at that moment. And we're all plagued by it. Romans 3:23 says that for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. All of us. And then we're told later in the Bible that if one says he hasn't sinned, he's lying to himself. He's straight up lying to himself. If you think you've done no wrong, then I'm here to tell you that you're just lying to yourself. All right? And so this sin has plagued us since the beginning, the practical beginning of time. Every person has been wrought with it. Every single person has had to deal with it. Every single person has made the bad decision. Every person has been sick at some point or another. And finally, God said, you know what? This disease that captivates humanity, I can give you the antibiotic for it. I've got the panacea. I've got the medicine to make this thing go away. And so Jesus comes, fully God, fully man, lives the perfect life. And then this is the cool part. Romans 6:23 tells us that the wages of sin is death. All of us who have sinned, we deserve to die because of that sin. The penalty for sin is death. Jesus didn't sin his entire life, yet he goes to the cross and dies anyway in our place, with our sins on his body. And in that moment, every other healing gets its perspective. Because here's the thing. A lot of us were like, you know what? I'm blind, and you haven't made me see yet, God. Or I'm lame. I'm not walking yet. Or I'm struggling with something, and you haven't come through yet. And you do it all the time in the Bible, but you haven't come through in my life. Well, here's the thing. I'm here to tell you that every single one of us has been healed already of our greatest disease that we'll ever have to deal with, which is sin. Jesus made a way through that into that great healing on the cross. And so, we get this perspective that no matter what, we're all healed. And I think when we take that to the first half of this passage, something amazing happens. We see in the first half of this passage, Jesus and Peter walk into his house, and Peter's mother-in-law has got a fever. Most likely, I'm guessing, this is just a picture that goes on in my mind. She's on the couch, wrapped up in a blanket. She's exhausted. She's tired. Fevers weren't something to scoff at in the first century. It was more like having pneumonia today. Okay, you might not die, but if you did die, it wouldn't be completely like, oh wow, that never happens. All right? It was something serious. And she's sitting there, she's got a fever, she's not feeling well, she's tired, she's exhausted. You know how it is when you got a fever. You get really, really cold, so you wrap yourselves up in a bunch of blankets, and then all of a sudden you're in the fiery furnace from Daniel, and you gotta like throw everything off, and you can't get all the enough covers off of you to stay cool enough. And Jesus just comes in, and quickly he's just like, puts his hand out, touches her, and the fever leaves her. Awesome healing. But I love the next phrase. The next phrase in the NIV says that then Peter's mother-in-law got up and began to wait on him. The NLT says that she got up and began to prepare a meal for him, and the ESV, the English Standard Version, I love this version of it, that she got up and began to serve him. You know, I think there's something amazing that we can learn from that. You see, it doesn't say anything in here, but my guess is that she was still pretty exhausted. It's not like your fever leaves you and all of a sudden you're like, whoo, feeling 100% all of a sudden, all right? My guess is she's still a little bit just exhausted. I mean, she's dealt with a fever for a little bit of time. Yet when he heals her, she gets up off that couch and she's like, Jesus, take a seat right where I was laying before, prop your feet up, kick your little sandals off, all right? I'm going to make sure you have everything you need. You need a glass of water, you need some wine, I'm going to go make you a meal, anything you need. You don't move a muscle, I'm serious, all right? Here's the remote to the TV, put on ESPN or Sports Center, and just, boom, have everything you need. And we're like, okay, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty awesome response to it. But here's the thing. I think she understood something about Christianity as a whole that we've forgotten. We've drastically forgotten. And in it, we've basically changed how we look at other people. We've changed how we look at Christianity. We've changed the gospel, in essence, through it. And so what I really want to focus on today is I love this message because God on Thursday morning completely changed it. And he loves to do that, all right? He changed it completely. Matthew 20:28 says, and this is Jesus talking, For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and give his life as a ransom for many. If you call yourself a Christian today, we've talked about this. The word Christian literally means 3 different ways people translate it. Christ-like, Christ-follower, or little Christ. Alright? Either way, the idea is the same. We're supposed to be exactly like Christ and follow Christ in everything. The Son of Man, meaning Jesus Christ, came not to be served, not to have a certain income level, not to have a certain standard of living, not to feel entitled to anything, but to serve others and give his life as a ransom for many. If you call yourself a Christian, you're calling yourself a Christ follower. If you're calling yourself a Christ follower, you're calling Christ the leader. Christ came not to be served. And so often, and I feel like it just gets worse and worse in dealing with different generations, because I get to see your high schoolers and middle schoolers. In our culture in America, we feel entitled to a whole lot. A whole lot. If we don't have a house with central AC and heating and everything else, whoo, we're living in the Stone Age. We feel entitled to that level of standard of living. But let me tell you what our leader lived like. He was born in a manger. That's a feed trough for cattle. That's usually, as a farmer, I can tell you this, it usually has manure that's mixed in with it. It has messed up hay and everything else, it's disgusting, all right? It's disgusting. It's the thing that you don't want to clean at the barn. It's absolutely disgusting. He was born, placed in there, with some cloths around him. He then lives for 30 years with his parents, until he's 30. Yeah, parents are like, no, don't go there. He lives with his parents until he's 30. And then he goes off and leaves his parents to be homeless for the next 3 years. Living off of what people who will let him into their houses will give. He was a couch surfer for 3 years, basically. Let me into your house, I'll eat your food. Not going to pay any rent, thanks. I'll teach you a couple cool things though in the process, and if you're sick, I'll heal you. For 3 years. And yet we feel like if we don't have a certain car with satellite navigation in it, or if we don't have central AC and air and heating, or if we don't have a laptop for every child or 2 for every child, that our standard of living is just sorrowful. And I think the deal is that Christ, he tells us, Christ wants followers. He wants Christians who understand what the word Christian means. And so if he came to serve others and give his life as a ransom for many, how much more should our lives be given in service to others? How much more should our lives be about the other person? And I'm not just talking about mom, dad, brother, sister, close friends right around you. I'm talking about the person you've never met before. I'm talking about the person with a different income level. I'm talking about a person that, let's be serious, maybe looks a little different, acts a little different, talks a little different. We're meant to serve everyone. And we've talked about it the last couple months as well. It all goes back to these greatest commandments that Jesus talks about. The first one being love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second one being just like it, love your neighbor as yourself. Can't think of a better way to show love to someone, a more tangible way to show love to someone than serving them. My wife shows this to me literally all the time. I hit the lottery. I'm dead serious here. But you know what the days that she especially shows it to me are? Sundays. I'll be completely honest with you guys. I get home on Sundays and I am beat. I know Joe's the same way because we've watched golf before and he's curled up and fallen asleep right next to me. It's kind of weird. I know I'm supposed to tell that story. It's kind of weird. Yes, we were sitting in their bed too, so it's a little weird. Someone got a picture, it'd be blackmail worthy. But
glad I have a short memory.
I know. But it's exhausting. Just give you a quick run through my Sundays. 5 a.m. wake up like every other day of the week, all right? Barn work. Then come back up, eat something, pack the truck, get last things together, get my bag together, make sure I've remembered all the permission slips and things like that I need for the youth ministry. Make sure that we pack everything else that I forgot the first time when I packed the truck, pack all that stuff up as well in the truck. Leave the house, drive 45 minutes here to Middletown to come to church, help set up for the next hour or so, then do praise team practice, mingle for a little bit, get to eat maybe a bite again, do the service, tear down, mingle some more, load the truck up, again, get the things that I forgot when I loaded the truck up the first time, put them back in the truck again, drive 45 minutes more home, unload the truck, and then somewhere around 2 o'clock, I'm glad to eat lunch. Somewhere around 2 o'clock. I don't say that to say, whoa, Brian's got a tough deal, but here's the deal. My wife gets up at 5 a.m. and does every single thing with me and makes it 10 times easier. And you know what? If that weren't enough, 2 o'clock rolls around, and I know she's hungry, especially now. She's pregnant now, so I mean, she's really hungry when 2 o'clock rolls around, all right? And you know what she does? I've never had to make lunch on a Sunday afternoon. She always makes lunch for me. Always. And you know what she does after lunch? She sits there and she says, hey, Brian. She more yells it at me and tells me to do it. She goes, sit your butt down on the couch, turn on golf, turn on football, take a nap, whatever, you're resting for the next couple hours. If you need your glass of water refilled, just ask. And I'll tell you, I know, all the guys are like, woohoo! I hit the lottery. But this woman, I'll tell you, she gets it. She gets the fact that I'm tired, I'm no good to do anything else but just take a nap on Sunday afternoons. And in order for me not to be a complete zombie just case come Sunday evening, I need my time on Sunday afternoon. And so, it's even more amazing when you realize that she comes from very productive stock. Alright, she does not stop, her hands don't stop the whole time. She keeps working the whole time, yet she's okay with me taking the rest, and she's okay with serving me when she knows that I need a little bit. And I can't tell you how much that shows me week after week, day after day, just how much that she loves me. And it's a simple, mundane, everyday way to show it. It's not something over the top amazing. It's not like we set up a nonprofit organization to serve all the needy in Frederick County or anything else. But you know what, for me, that shows me that she loves me more than anything else probably. Just the fact that she's willing to make lunch after a long, hard day on Sundays. And it's always good too, it's really good, right? But here's the deal. John 13:35 says, by this all men will know that you are my disciples. Again, it's Jesus talking. If you love one another. If we love one another, if we serve others, if we start to give our lives as a ransom for others, people are going to know that we're Christ's disciples. You know why? Because it's weird when you start seeing people who live their life with others as their focus instead of themselves. It's strange. It's kind of unnerving even sometimes. You're like, oh, dude, slow down. But it opens up the avenue to say, why do you do this? Jesus. All of a sudden you become a witness because you just put other people before you. And so, my last slide, this is where God changed things. It says go and serve. That was my original takeaway for today. Go and serve. That's what originally I was like, Monday morning, I was like, well, that's the obvious thing. And then Thursday, God got out his proverbial baseball bat. And Thursday morning, he took a nice big swing and, that sounded cool actually, right on my head and said, no. See, when I tell you to go and serve, it sounds like it's another thing to put on the to-do list. Another thing to check off to say, yep, I'm in good standing with God because I went and served. All right, we got to serve at the soup kitchen twice this year. We're going to up it from once last year. And as long as I do that, I'm good to go. Jesus is happy, my spiritual life is awesome, and we're good to go. And you know what? People have been doing that forever. You're in good company because there's a lot of others that have done it. The Israelites, notorious for it. The Pharisees in the New Testament, notorious for it. They would do the sacrifices, they would do this, that, and the other. They would make sure that they held up the law to the letter of the T. They would make sure things are perfect. And they did everything, every little thing that God said to do. Go and serve others. Go and do this, that, and the other. Keep yourselves clean. And you know what? Jesus and Isaiah both resound and say the same exact thing. In paraphrasing, they say, your sacrifices are despicable to me, because you do all the rituals, but your hearts are far from me. If it's just another to-do item that you check off your list, it's not good enough. If your heart is far, it's not what Jesus wants. Jesus wants our lives and our hearts to be so overwhelmed with this healing that goes on here, this great healing that Jesus took on our cross, so overwhelmed with his love for us that he came and died and made a way and gave us the antidote to our greatest plague that's ever hit humanity. He wants us to be so overwhelmed with that we go, I follow you everywhere, Jesus. My heart aligns with your heart. My heart is the same as yours. And a heart that beats the same as Jesus' naturally goes and serves others. Because Jesus naturally went and made his life not about being served, about serving others and giving his life as a ransom for them. And so it comes down to this, and this is blunt, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but if we don't have lives that look like that we naturally are serving others and seeking others, then if we call ourselves a Christian, we missed the boat. If our lives aren't lining up with what Jesus says his life lined up as, our hearts are not overwhelmed enough with Christ's death and suffering on the cross. We have not been captivated by what it means to have Christ die for our sins on the cross at all. And the deal is that it all starts in here. I'll tell you, I'm completely off my notes right now because I need to go back to change my notes at all. Notes are the same way they were on Monday morning. Because it comes down to whether we are willing to have hearts that will follow Jesus in everything. It's not about writing down all the do's and don'ts and then sticking to them perfectly. And some of you guys, you're like, that really hurts because I love to-do lists. I've got like 85 on my desk too, believe me, and none of them are started. I know there's a bunch of you that are like that. You're like, I got all these to-do lists, there's like one thing crossed off, that's it. I'm like the same way, but here's the deal. God doesn't want a to-do list. He wants a heart. He wants a life that follows after him. And so, yes, go and serve if your heart's changed and it comes out of the wellspring of your heart. And I'm almost to the point to say, don't go and serve if it's not. Work on getting your heart right, because if you go and serve otherwise, and you say that you're a Christian, the rest of your life probably isn't going to line up with it, and you're going to make the rest of us that are trying to do that look really bad in the process. And 90% of the different times where in history, Christianity has looked really bad because people did things in Christ's name have happened because lives were not transformed, hearts were not transformed, and they tried to do the do's and don'ts, and it ended up hurting the kingdom instead of helping the kingdom. It starts here. So this week, there's some scriptures on the back of the bulletin, things like that. Look them over and try to overwhelm yourself with Christ's love. Realize what it meant, what he's done for you. And then follow. That's what it comes down to. We good?